Good morning, friends. Welcome back. It is a beautiful day here on the homestead. Looking to be a gorgeous one to get some trees in the ground. Now, I want to apologize at the beginning of this video if it sounds like I'm projecting a little bit. I'm trying to talk over the wind, and my microphone does a really good job most of the time, but sometimes if the wind really kicks up, it'll take the wind over my voice. So I got to project a little bit more to allow it to pick up my voice over the wind. As my last video said, I ordered 150 trees from the Kansas Forest Service, and those trees need to get in the ground as soon as possible. Got a little antsy last night on the website, and I ended up buying another 50 trees, or 50 shrubs, that should be shipped out today, and they'll deliver tomorrow, which is Friday or Saturday. So we'll see how it goes. But what's that relevant to anything? Right now I'm in front of my beehive corridor. We got our first bee nuke Tuesday of last week. It was chilly all last week and very windy. Tomorrow, Friday, will be the first day that it's going to be warm and somewhat calm enough to actually be able to open up that beehive and check and see if the queen has been released. Now, it's interesting to, first of all, read and research what bees are and do and how they help the system, the ecosystem work. They're extremely important to our life. Without bees, pollination doesn't happen. Pollination doesn't happen, you don't have a garden. You don't have trees. You don't have fruits and vegetables and so on and so forth. So if you want a hobby, yes, it can be expensive, but if you want a hobby and you're interested in providing something for your life, beekeeping is the hobby to get into. Now, this is my wife's hobby, so I'm going to leave it to her for the most part, but it's really cool to see how everything is working. In fact, just before I started this video, I was watching this wasp fly around these walls here. At any given time, there's 10 to 20 guard bees at the entrance of this hive. The entrance is about 3/4 of an inch wide. And, in fact, there's another one right there. And this wasp landed on, or near the entrance. And those guard bees were at a swath about 6 to 8 inches wide. The wasp walked over to the middle of them, and those bees came around it. And I watched one of the worker bees pick that wasp up and flew it that direction with the wind. My house is around 200 yards away, and I lost sight of it at the house. And so what those bees will do, they'll pick them up and they'll just sacrifice their life to get that threat away from the beehive as far as possible, because that queen is the center of that beehive, and that's what their job is to do, is to protect that hive. Now, what's this all relevant to anything? Well, just behind you guys and in front of me, I'm getting ready to chisel up some ground, and this ground is going to be the home of a whole golden currant crop, basically. I've got 25 golden currants, and I've got about a 60 to 70 foot run. I may make it a little bit longer. I'm going to be planting a whole row of golden currants. And golden currants, they are an edible fruit, or they create an edible fruit, and those fruits provide food for us, and that's kind of getting to the food forest idea of permaculture. But they're also going to serve as protection for quail and pheasant, both of which we have here on the property. And I've actually got plans to create some little sections for quail and pheasants, but I want to make sure this is the first one. Not only does it do that, but my bees are right here, and so 40 feet that direction, if I can put a whole row of different kind of bushes and shrubs that provide food for myself and shelter for the animals, these guys will help pollinate it and get their growth taking off. So where I'm sitting at is in the middle of a valley, and this valley is not the greatest spot to be planting anything, but it's down below the rest of the property basically, and this ground is fairly moist. It's really nice and crumbly. Even though we have got very little moisture here in Kansas where we live, this ground is going to be a good spot for a drought resistant plant. And of course I'll have to bring water down here and water it regularly, but this is a good spot to plant a row of stuff. It's a useless spot otherwise. Basically all the stuff you see around here, this used to be fireweed and ditchweed. So the male version of marijuana basically grows wild right here. I don't know if it was planted for a reason years ago for hemp, but at this point it's useless to me, and all it does is create a bunch of undergrowth that you can't even mow up. I gotta burn this off. I need to mow it off, but I'm just gonna rake it up and pile it up and create a bunch of hugelkultur mounds to help it break down naturally. I want to get that ground coming back, and so one of the first things is turning it over and getting these bushes in the ground, and well, this will be an interesting thing. So I'm gonna go ahead and hop in the tractor, run this, I think it's 75 foot. Run this 75 foot a couple of times, turn it over, and then we're gonna get ground cloth put down. We'll go from there. So with each pass, I extended it about a foot or two, but basically that turns up really, really nice. Like I said, without having a bunch of moisture in the last several months, this ground is pretty nice and moist. It's been covered for many, many years with feet of this right here. It is natural, you know, mulch and everything, but I want to make this stuff go away. It doesn't burn, and so just tossing in a hugelkultur mound will be the best thing that we can do. That'll actually create another habitat for, say, rabbits and other, you know, wild things. And so this line is looking pretty good. I'll get a measuring tape out and we'll measure it out completely here in a second, but not before I take my landscape rake. And my biggest thing here is, of course, we got to get this back in there, all the soil that kicked out with the turning over. But I need to get these old roots out, and of course they will break down over time, but they can also re-root themselves and pop out stuff that I don't want to compete with the currents, the golden currents I'm going to be putting in the ground here. So I'm going to go ahead and do a couple more spots with my chisel, and then I'll go put on the landscape rake and get this all flattened out and all that stuff pulled out of the way. That way we can actually have a nice flat clean spot to be putting plants in the ground. So let's go about it. Oh, the wind's kicking up a little bit, but a couple hours later I've got some more work done. This one's cleaned up, ready to go. I've got another line here and another line right over here, and then up on this ridge I've got 100 and some foot one, and then a little like 20 or 30 foot run right there. Those are gonna be a couple of trees. It's closer to those trees than it is. Looks like, but from this stake here all the way down to that stake is 60 foot, so I can get 15 golden currants in this one, spaced out in 4-foot intervals. I'm gonna do choke cherries and black choke cherries in these two rows. I'll probably mulch drain them a little bit, and And then up here on this ridge, I'm going to do a whole line of lilacs, and that'll help, you know, bring some color and maybe some fragrance to the area. I did take some time and cleaned up all this underbrush, built up a big old pile there, and a big old pile down there. They look smaller in the camera than they actually are. That's about 6 foot tall, probably 15 to 20 foot wide. So, gonna do pretty good. Excited to get some stuff in the ground. We actually might get some moisture here. Well, we'll see what happens. All right, so I've got my string line down and my flags, and I've been kind of going back and forth on whether I want to put ground cloth or not. I would have had to put, you know, some dirt on it and everything, but that would help keep it moist. The problem is winds blowing that ground cloth away, and I can get giant stakes to put that ground cloth in. So I'll figure out what I want to do with it here pretty quick. But I've got 18 flags in a row. And I might go talk to the FSA office. They've actually got the attachment that you can borrow for free, and the plastic, because it's for conservation. And that machine basically just rolls and cups the dirt on the edges up and over the plastic that it rolls out, and then you put your flags in there and so on and so forth. But I don't necessarily want the plastic barrier because I'm not doing drip irrigation on this. I'm going to come back here with the garden hose and the trailer. Anyways, I will come back to this video soon enough. Hopefully I don't have anything planned yet, but the wind is getting crazy out here, and I can see a dust storm, a giant dust cloud to the south here, and not going to make my evening very fun. So keep on and carry on. Stay tuned. I'll see you later.